What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blue River Bow Hunting Podcast, episode 80. What's going on, Dylan? Your second full-time podcast. How do you think the first one went?
I enjoyed it. I think it went well. I think we covered a lot of topics, and people were saying they learned stuff and had good feedback. So we'll keep on going with it.
Yeah, I had great feedback on us full-time in this. It's been kind of fun. It makes it a little more fun for me to have somebody to do it with. And then when you're both excited to do it, it makes it just a fun. And doing it every week, it's kind of something I look forward to every week now, having some beers with you guys and talking turkey hunting. I mean, what gets any better than that besides actually hunting them?
Absolutely. We've been scheming up a lot, and I'm excited for this one. So I think it'll be not only beneficial for other people to hear, but I'm pretty interested in what we're going to talk about. So.
Oh, for sure. So our guest today is Jon Waugh from Ohio. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, not much, man. Just sitting here getting ready to talk some turkey.
That's awesome, man. So somebody that doesn't know you or doesn't follow you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm from Southern Ohio. Was raised here pretty much all my life. Grew up, my grandpa had 160 acres in Southern Ohio and had a 2-acre pond on it. It was actually a club, but I had free range of that place and cut my teeth on squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, waterfowl, anything that moved, really. I was hunting it. And so, I mean, I got bit by the turkey bug kind of early. Well, I would say about 12 years old. My dad took me out turkey hunting, and it just lit a fire under me, man. That's been my passion ever since.
When I think of Southeast Ohio, turkeys isn't the first thing that comes to my mind. Deer hunting comes to mind, but how big is the turkey population there in Southeast Ohio?
It's been in like wavy here the last few years. I know back in 2003, like it was nothing to go out and hear, 7 or 8 birds on a 100-acre property. Now you're lucky to hear 1 or 2, and they're in pockets. Like I found a lot of birds in pockets. Last year I found a ridge that had 4 longbeards on it, and then you go a mile down the road and there won't be a hen, a scratch, no scratching, nothing.
What do you think? What do you think makes it that way? Predators?
I think predators and habitat, and I mean our climate ain't been the greatest the last few years. We've had some cold, wet springs, and that can really be detrimental to the poults. I really, for turkeys, it's death by 1,000 cuts, man. Like, I mean, anything and everything's trying to eat them, kill them. Our habitat's forever changing. There's a lot of timber harvest that goes on all around here. There's a lot of big hardwood stands that's been cut down and stuff, and that just turns into a big brush land, and it's hard for them poults to get through.
What about the terrain? A lot of people don't really know the southeastern Ohio terrain, like yourself or myself or Dylan even. But talk about how vastly different that terrain can be.
So, like, where I live is just a bunch of rolling hills. I mean, it's big rolling hills. It's not much different from Kentucky or West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia's got some really tall ridges and stuff like that, but Ohio, like where I'm at, I can go 30 minutes down the road and it's flat and cornfields. Or I can go, 15 minutes down the road and there's the Hocking Hills. That's just huge caverns and caves and big hills, rolling hills and stuff. So the part I'm in is pretty diverse. There's a lot of diversity down here.
Absolutely. What about the properties that you're hunting? How many properties are you hunting, and private, public, or are you hopping around to everything?
I hunt anything and everything. I've got 20 acres myself here at home. There's not a whole lot of turkeys here. I think in the last 7 years we've lived here, I've heard 3 birds on the property out back here. One time we had a bird at 20 yards. The little boy I took out couldn't see him, so he couldn't get a shot. I could hear him spitting and drumming, but I couldn't see him. He was just over the roll in the hill. And I got a farm down the road. It's my buddy's grandpa's farm that we've been hunting since we was kids. My buddy moved to California, so I go out there and I hunt with him, hunt on his grandpa's property, and it's 40 acres of cattle pasture and woods. It's hardwoods and cattle pasture, and the cattle go through the hardwoods. So, I mean, they eat all the brush, and it's beautiful in there.
Mhm.
And we've killed a lot of turkeys in there. And then, honestly, last year I hunted about 90% of the public around here. 90% of the time I was on public land around here, just beating feet and trying to get on them. I found a few birds here and there, but yeah, I didn't even kill a bird in Ohio last year, but I heard quite a few. I called some in for some other people, and I killed my 2 birds in Kentucky last year, and I was completely satisfied with that. So, like, just getting other people out and getting kids involved and people who had never done it before involved was my main thing last year.
How many kids have you gotten to take out? I've enjoyed that the last couple of years. I did real well last year. West Virginia got a 15-year-old on his first bird, first ever hunt. He got it done. And then Indiana youth season, we went back-to-back days, one on private, one on public. But I really enjoy the turkey hunting with the youth.
Oh yeah, I've only got to take out a couple kids. One was my buddy's nephew, and I mean we hunted hard with him for like 4 years, and it just seemed like anything and everything that could happen to ruin a turkey hunt happened. And I mean it was just this boy put in the work, put in the miles, and I felt so bad for him because he just struggled. Every time we got out there, we struggled to get a bird in range, and then like I would go 2 days later and go out by myself and kill one, and then come back and I'm like, all right, we got a ball going here. We're rolling. Let's go kill one.
Right.
And then something messed up would happen. And so I spent a lot of time on that. This year, I'm super excited. I'm going to get my son out with me. He's not going to hunt. He's only 3, but I'm going to take him out with me. And then my daughter, who's just turned 9, she wants to do it this year for the first time. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm ready to pass that on.
For sure.
Absolutely.
I know Dylan's big into that.
Oh yeah, man. I've had my. I think she was probably 2 months old. She was already at the taxidermist. So
oh yeah.
Yes, she's been after it, and she puts more. Like, I joke about it, but she works harder than most weekend warriors because she's out on the tractor, the side by side. She's always out there with us, and we were building this big impoundment for ducks to flood, and it was midsummer. That poor kid was out there just sweating it out with us, just playing. And I'm like, yeah, it's in your DNA, kiddo. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Talk about Ohio's. How many birds can you kill there? How is the DNR? You can first tell me how many birds you can kill, but how does the DNR work with the turkey population? Is Ohio DNR pretty good at making some turkey properties?
So like the area I live in, we have like a couple different wildlife areas, and they do pretty well. But I've noticed here in the recent years that they've kind of got away from planting ag and stuff like they used to. I don't know if it's because of the newer research coming out about corn or whatever, about the aflatoxins and stuff like that in corn that can harm turkeys. But they used to plant fields of corn and stuff, and for the deer and the turkeys and everything. They aren't really planting the fields like they used to and maintaining stuff, but they've started doing it in pockets. Like I've noticed some areas that they don't usually plow and stuff, they've started to plow and plant stuff in. But a couple years back, Ohio dropped down to 1 bird. We was a 2-bird state up until I want to say it was 2022, I think, is when it. So we've been 2 years now with 1 bird, and a lot of people were kind of, upset about that. And me personally, I didn't care because whatever we can do to help the wild turkey, I know some people say that doesn't help, but the less your birds are taken out of the woods, the more that are left over for the following year. And, the gobbling activity goes up and the hunter success goes up each year. So, I mean, that to me, they took a right step there. It's something that they can control, statewide, going ahead and cutting the bag limit down to 1. And then, I think I wish they would do more with the habitat rehabilitation a little bit. I've talked to some ODNR officers, and they kind of don't think that the habitat has changed that much in 17, 18 years, but there's a lot more timber harvest, like I said, and then they're just leaving that land kind of barren. So, I mean, it's just left to grow up in complete brush. There's no burning like there used to be or anything like that.
Now, how does that affect your scouting when you go in and these places are kind of dwindling down in numbers? Do you start looking for just different habitat? Are you having to drive further?
So I'm pretty fortunate to have quite a bit of public land around me. I mean, there's the Wayne National Forest is a pretty vast area. It spans quite a bit of counties down here in Southern Ohio. So like, I'll drive 40, 45 minutes and find a new piece if I have to. But there's a couple pieces that are kind of close that are smaller. I know I just heard of one the other day. I haven't got a chance to go out and look at it. One that I typically hunt quite a bit. They harvested quite a bit of timber in a spot that I like to hunt. So I'm going to have to go in and kind of reassess the situation and see, where it might have pushed the birds to, or just going in and looking for fresh sign in the immediate area to see if the birds are still trying to hang out in that area. And, because it's a pretty diverse area. There's a lot of creeks and streams and stuff and ponds around there, and then there's big standing timber, oak trees and stuff like that with a lot of acorns and stuff. So I mean, I don't think they'll go far, but at the same time, you never really know until you get feet on the ground and get boots on the ground and kind of go in and check it out. So I mean, sometimes I'll travel far, sometimes stick close to the house. You never know when you might find a new hot spot.
Absolutely. How's the pressure there? Is it because like I know in certain areas around our house, like the easy access, there's a spot. It's kind of odd, but it's right in the center of Knoxville, like 10 minutes from Neyland Stadium, and it's called Forks of the River. And you can go in there. There'll be people dove hunting, duck hunting, deer hunting, and people doing nature hikes, like all. So that piece gets really pressured, like it's absurd. But then we have some chunks that they don't get any pressure because it's just vast, steep terrain.
Yeah. So the pressure around here gets, some of our areas get heavily pressured. Like the one area that I like to go to, Cooper Hollow Wildlife Area, man, it gets beat up. Some years worse than others, but like there's a lot of Amish that live down here, and they go out there and hunt and fish and trap, and I mean everything. A lot of the places that I go in there, well, Cooper Hollow has numerous amount of ponds, and they're all the time in there fishing. People love to go out there, and it's a beautiful wildlife area. So people will go out there with their kids and go on nature hikes and stuff like that. And man, it just, I've run into mushroom hunters, and you name it, I've seen them out there. People go out there just to walk around and stuff a lot, and you run into people on nature hikes when you're out there turkey hunting. And I mean, the birds know it, they feel it. I know they do, because I've watched birds, walk right past people and not say a word, and go 200-300 yards the other way and then start gobbling.
Does the ODNR, do they hold like reserved hunts for turkeys?
There's some places in Ohio that they do. I know that I just got an email the other day to apply for a what do they call it? So it was like a reserve hunt. It was I can't remember what it was, but you can apply for it, and they only give out so many tags for a certain area or whatever. But for the most part, most of ours is just walk-in management area. You drive in there, park at the gate, and then you walk in. There's no ATVs beyond a certain point, and you walk in from there, and there's trails and stuff all through them. So they're pretty easily accessed. Some people, there's some trails that some people won't walk that are about 4 or 5 miles in, and that's where I typically find to have the most luck.
Absolutely. And I hate it too when you're like, well, this is like 5 miles deep, and you think you walked all the way to, the end of it. You might strike one up or get lucky. I'm particularly thinking about deer hunting, and then like you sit down and here 5 minutes later, here comes somebody. You're like, dude, I just walked. I thought I walked further than anybody did today. Guess not.
Yeah. I've run into that a few times. I'll get on a bird working hot, and then a guy comes in from the neighboring property, or a guy comes in from a completely different access point. Like he'd have permission to go through somebody's other piece of property to get to this spot. And sometimes you think you're back there, you're secluded, and you're by yourself, and then you never know who's going to pop up in there on you. Gobbling turkeys will make people come a long way.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So the reason I kind of wanted to get you on here is because you're really big into competitions, calling in competitions, the hoot owl, all that stuff. How did that all come about? Like, how did you end up doing that for the first time?
So I'll kind of start back at the very beginning of my hunting heritage, I guess. My dad's buddy took me out when I was 12, and I remember we was sitting on the tree my first hunt, and I remember he was calling. He used an old Primo's True Triple, and I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they are a mouthful. It's 3 frames stacked on top of each other, and each frame has a reed in it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a mouthful, and it's a raspy, raspy call. So I'm sitting there listening to him run this call and just thinking to myself, like, I would like to do that. And then a hen comes in and just starts tearing it up, and they're going back and forth. And it was like I had a bird gobbling out in front of me about 150, 200 yards out. And I mean, we all know what happens in that situation. The hen goes over and takes him, and then you never see him again. So, right. But I remember in that moment, though, it was like that interaction that he had with that hen just kind of sparked it for me. And then the next year I was able to go out and harvest my first turkey with him and my dad. And then my dad started buying me those True Triples, Primo's True Triple mouth calls. And I just sat around the house and blew on them things and drove my parents nuts. And I remember a couple of them got thrown in the trash, and it was one of those things. Like I had a knack for it. It was eating me up all the time. I was almost like I was addicted to it. I just really wanted to do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I went down to the gas station one day and bought my own call. We had little calls in the gas station down there. And I bought one and I started running it. Well, then I took it to school. And my teacher, my 6th grade history teacher, took it from me. And she's like, you can have it back when your parents sign this slip. So I went to the gas station and bought another one. So I mean, I just always loved calling so much. And then as I got older, I got better and better the more I practiced. And my buddy, actually my cousin and a couple of my buddies were like, hey man, you should really, try this competition stuff. And I was like, I'm not really worried about it. I'm just worried about killing turkeys, And, it was 2015, and a guy sent me a link. One of my buddies sent me a link to a turkey calling competition in the nearby county at their Wild Turkey Festival over in Denton County, Ohio. So I went over there for the first time, and I called in the open division. It wasn't a sanctioned contest, so I was like, there was one other dude in the open division, and he was telling me, he's like, you need to go ahead and get in the open division because it's a lot more money. It'd pay out a lot more money. And I was like, okay. So I did that and got second place behind this guy. And, I had to brag about that a little bit. Didn't tell me very many people that there was only two of us in the competition. So, but he ended up, that was Kendall Keaton. And he was a really good caller. Like he was he's made the finals. He made the top 5 in the finals at Grand Nationals a few years before that. And we kind of struck up conversation afterwards, me, him, and his dad. And his dad's like, you should stick with this. You've got a good base and stuff to work on. And I was like, okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. So I didn't really go to any other competitions. Well, the following year, that competition rolls back around, and it's the last weekend of turkey season. And I decided, well, I'm going to go do it again. And this time it was a sanctioned contest. So I went over to there, and we was, sitting there talking. There was a bunch of guys that I'd never met. And then, these guys are pulling in these cases of 30, 40 pot calls. And the other guy's got a box over here with 30 or 40 diaphragm calls in it. And I'm standing there and looking at these guys like, oh, I've got these Primos and HS strut calls. And I'm like, well, I give her a shot, I guess, And I competed in the hunter division, and in that one, I didn't compete in the open. I was under the assumption you had to like work your way up. You had to win a hunter division before you could call in an open. Come to find out, that's not the case. I could have called in the open, but I just went ahead and called in the hunter division that year. And there was a guy there by the name of Dustin Jones, who is a pot call builder that ends up he lives 10 minutes down the road from me, and he he's been such a good friend to me and a mentor and taught me so much. And he's actually my partner at the Grand Nationals for the Team Air and Friction. But we kind of hit it off, and next thing you know, we're messaging back and forth and everything. And before you know it, I'm going to West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Kentucky and all over Ohio to compete in these competitions. And I just, every time I go somewhere, I would just meet somebody new that I connected with, and we became, such good friends. And it just kind of snowballed from there into, I kept telling myself, I want to make the Grand Nationals. I want to make the Grand Nationals. I want to be on the big stage and see what it's all about. And I want to say it was in 2018. I tied Dustin for first place at a competition in Parkersburg, West Virginia, which gave me my qualification. He beat me in the call off by 1 point, but he was already qualified for Grand Nationals, so that grandfathered me in. And I remember that day was like, it was like a light bulb moment for me, and I was like, okay, I made it. So now what? And that year I was going to go, ended up having shoulder surgery on my right shoulder. My dad was diagnosed with kidney cancer that year, so we didn't end up making it that year to Grand Nationals. And then, as we all know, COVID hit and shut everything down. So I had to wait a couple more years to get my shot at going to Grand Nationals. And in that time, I had competed in a few contests here and there, but with COVID and stuff going on, it kind of, all the contests, they did a online contest for the NWTF. I think it was called the Spring Seclusion Contest. I got in that and made it to the semifinals, I think it was, or quarterfinals. And that was for qualification for the following year at Grand Nationals. And I don't think they ended up having the convention again that year. And then you see, fast forward to 2021, and that was my first shot at actually getting to go to Grand Nationals. There was no health problems going on. We were all, healthy and happy and ready to go. And I went down to Cincinnati and placed second in a contest down there in Cincinnati right before Grand Nationals. So, I was high on the hog. I'm ready to go, get down to Grand Nationals. And I think I finished 21st out of 40 some guys. So, I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm not quite there yet. So I went back to it and started grinding even harder, and won a couple competitions in West Virginia, and placed in some in Ohio, won a state championship in the owl hooting and all that. And then, you get to Grand Nationals 2022, and it was 2023. So that was 2022 was whenever I went my first Grand Nationals. 2023 was the year that I made it to Grand Nationals, and I ended up making the finals. So what they do is they take you have to qualify to get there. And that year, I think there was 40, I want to say there was 39 or 40 callers, and they take the top 13. It's the top 12 plus the returning champion, which was Matt Van Sice. And you get to the finals. And I ended up, I think I finished 10th in the prelims, squeaked into the finals. And the finals was just a whole different ball game, man. Getting up there with these guys that I've watched call for years on YouTube and on TV, and being up there standing shoulder to shoulder with them and competing against them is just a whole different feeling once you're up there. And they're singing the national anthem, and, just things, it starts to become real at that point,
Oh,
and
sure.
Like you go up and I don't know if you've watched the finals or anything, but they do a scenario format. So instead of like calling out, like, give us the cutting of an excited hen or the yelp of an excited hen or whatever, on the call list, it's, a spring early wake up, and they go through the scenario. There's a mixed flock of hens and jakes. So you have to be very versatile with your calling and be able to make it flow together and stuff. And I just remember being so nervous, and I'm sitting backstage, and I'm just shaking. I'm sitting back here with guys, and talking to some guys, pretty big name guys, and they're like, "Yeah, man, it's just a ball of nerves. I can't wait to get over this ball of nerves so I can go turkey hunting." And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel you." And I'm like, "But what am I going to do right now? I'm worried about right now." And so you go out there. I went out there, and I had a really good run. I don't remember any of it, to be honest with you. It's just like
blacked out.
I went on autopilot, and the only thing I remember was my reeds were stuck together on my fighting purr, and I remember just getting immediately mad at myself for not taking the time to separate those reeds. And I took my hat off, and fighting purr, their wings are smacking, so I'm sitting there beating my leg with my hat out of frustration, and ended up, I mean, I didn't score as bad as I thought I would on that, but I ended up finishing sixth place. I was 3 points away from the top 5. And I mean, it was like, at that moment, it was like, it was so surreal. Like, I come out from behind a curtain, and my mom and dad are standing there, and I'm like, I got sixth place. Like, I was so excited to get sixth
Right.
place. All these other guys are standing up there with plaques and getting paid. And I'm just like, I got sixth place. And, and people were just kind of looking at me like, "Yeah, okay, cool, yeah, good job, yeah." And I mean, it was, and then we went back this year, and I didn't make the finals, but I did end up getting fourth in the owl hoot this year, and it's just been one of those things that, like, you growing up, and you think about like a gas station turkey call. You're buying turkey calls at a gas station, and the next thing you know, you're standing on a Grand National stage with Dave Owens or Michael Waddell was the MC there a few times and stuff. And then you see Josh Grosenbacher, a guy that I grew up watching. And it's like, it's crazy to think that a gas station turkey call has led to something like this.
Well, I'd imagine a lot of those guys have similar backgrounds. That nobody really knew them on that kind of level until they got up there and started performing at a professional level on their calling. But I mean, that's a cool story, dude. I mean, like, I'm kind of blown away. Like, it sounds like you gravitate or do better in the competition side on the owl hooting. I mean, you've won multiple state championships on that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the owl hooting, the story behind the owl hooting it was kind of funny, because that competition, I was saying that I tied for first place with Dustin. So in competitions, when you draw number 1, you get to go again, because the first caller doesn't count. It's just kind of to get the judges' ears tuned up and stuff. And I remember I drew caller 1 and caller 7. So I went up at caller 1, and I was a nervous wreck. And I had some mess ups, and I flubbed some stuff up. Well, then I go up at caller number 7, and I had one of the better runs at that time that I'd ever had in my life. So I was like, man, getting on that stage the first time kind of helped me get that the ball of nerves out of the way. And so I started looking at most of the contests. The owl hooting is one of the first things that they do. So they'll do like the kids division, the juniors and the Polts and all that. And then they'll go into owl hooting and gobbling. And I'm like, well, I grew up owl hooting my whole life at my grandpa's pond. I would sit around and owl hoot and call owls in all night while we was catfishing, and just sit there and listen to them. So I had a pretty good rhythm and cadence and stuff down. So I did a few contests with my natural voice, and I think I won 1 or maybe 2 owl hooting competitions with my natural voice. And then I went to a competition, and a guy had a Harrison hooting stick, and I just remember being in awe of like how real this call sounded. And I mean, most of it was, or part of it had to do with the operator himself, being able to run the call the way he did. So I immediately got on, I think it was Midwest Turkey Call Supply, and I ordered this Harrison walnut hooter for like $27. And I was like, I'm going to start owl hooting at these competitions to get the nerves out of the way. So then I want to say, I think my first competition I ever done with that owl hooter, I ended up taking first place, and then it was just kind of like a roll ever since then. Like I've just always been intrigued by doing the owl competition and stuff, and um, I've been fairly successful at it. I mean, it's I've won four Ohio State championships, West Virginia State, Virginia, PA, stuff like. It's just something that I started doing as a way to get my nerves out of the way, and then it's turned into now it's like, oh, okay, well, I should probably take this a little bit more serious than I do, I guess, because I'm starting to be competitive at it. And then this year, like I said, I ended up getting fourth, and that was something that I honestly never expected to happen.
That's pretty cool. So how they do throw all those wild scenarios at you? How do you kind of train yourself to call that? Do you listen to YouTube videos? Or are you going out to listen to, the turkey do it? Or like, how do you get into the
All of it. Just
every bit
I'll
of it?
listen to I'll listen to hours and hours of hen audio. Like I don't know if you ever heard of the track Treetop Turkeys.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
Treetop Turkeys, if you listen to look at those scenarios that they write out, these scenarios, those all happen in the Treetop Turkeys recordings. Like you hear the early morning wake up, you hear all the chatter back and forth, the hens talking back and forth, the jakes calking back and forth, and you hear the excited yelping and all this stuff going on. And then later on in that track, you hear the fighting purrs, the jake calks, the wing beats. I mean, you hear it all. It's all right there. So I'll listen to that. Um, I have some pretty good audio that I've recorded myself, especially from Kentucky last year in that field. I mean, there had to be 30 plus turkeys in that field. There were 6 longbeards and 20 some jakes or 20 some hens in this field. And I mean, they were just nonstop the whole time, just back and forth, back and forth. And I heard kikis, I heard purrs, fighting purrs, cutting, excited yelping, plain yelping, assembly yelping. It was all there. And I'll go back and listen to that all the time. Matter of fact, like last year when I made the finals, I sat backstage with my headphones on and just listened to Treetop Turkeys the whole time until it was my turn to go, just to kind of get myself in that mindset and submerge myself in the woods, per se. You're in a building
Yeah.
in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee, but that's as close as you can get to the woods is listening to that. So that's kind of where, I listen to a lot of different YouTube. There's a lot of guys out there that have really, really good audio on, I mean, anything you want to look up, the Jake Yelp or Fight and Purr or Kiki, whatever it is. There's hours and hours of it out there on YouTube.
All right.
How
Yeah,
did
there he is.
how did you get yourself ready for that first one though? Had you like looked it up before and seen kind of how they go through it, or are you just like, I got this call in my mouth, we're about to go hit it, and I don't care what I got to do?
That is it basically exactly what happened. I remember they called an adult hen assembly call, and at the time I was so naive and out of touch with it. I had no idea what adult hen assembly was, so I was doing it all. I mean, I was yelping and cutting and purring and fly down. I mean, I did it all. I thought it was an assembly. I don't. At the time, this is the first I'd ever heard of a competition and what they actually did in these competitions. So I go into it like it's pretty self-explanatory. Some of them are like the cluck and purr, or the excited yelping, or hen yelping, or whatever, cutting. But then, some of the stuff was like the hen assembly. I had never heard a hen assembly yelp because that's more of a fall call when she's trying to, get her poults and stuff back. And same with the kiki. I wasn't really sure what a kiki was. Luckily, it wasn't in the hunter division, but that's a call that I, had to pick up on pretty early.
I've actually heard a wild hen do a kiki, and at first I was kind of like, what the hell was that? And then she
Yeah.
did it again, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're putting down now. And
Yep.
hearing that, it makes it better for you to be able to try to replicate that sound because you've heard it in real life before,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I know that Kentucky hunt last year, there was one hen in that video that I took that she has a really sweet, pretty clean kiki, and I just go back and listen to it, and I'm like, man, like if I could just hit that the way she does, then we're in there. But it's the vocalization of the wild turkey is very, very intriguing to me. Just all the different things that they can say, and I mean, we'll never know what they're saying because we can't comprehend what a turkey is saying, but just the way that they're able to show their emotion and bring it out, and you're just sitting there like, oh, okay, well, that's this, she's doing this, she's doing that, and then people will be like, oh, well, she's saying this, saying that. We don't know what they're saying, but we can feel it, you know.
Right. And I feel like a competition side, a turkey, say like turkey hunting versus like the duck side, waterfowl competitions. Like when you hear stuff in a competition, like you're hoot owling and stuff like that, like that's, you can like transform into that, into you when you're a hunting scenario and using those vocalizations. And when you're at a duck calling, it's just who can blow the thing the loudest. I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
With the ducks, I think they do a meat calling competition and then an actual, the actual calling.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel like with duck calling, something that I've noticed. I'm not really well knowledged in the duck calling competitions, but I've seen like it's all about versatility. Who can do what the fastest? You can change from this call to that call to this call to that call, and do it all and kind of make it sound good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people underestimate the amount of kind of, I guess, cardio it takes to blow a duck call or a turkey call. Because I'll hit a sequence sometimes, and I'm like, or I'll be walking, and then you hear one gobble while you're walking, so you stop and you're like, I need to catch my breath for a second. Because I mean, I've hit notes before, and then I'm just long-winded, I guess, So I'm sure like doing a competition, you're kind of like nervous trying to stay just like air in the lungs.
Yes. So that's like one of the biggest things with competition calling is like I can sit on a tree and call to a bird all day long and not worry about how I'm sounding or worrying about messing up. But like when you're in a competition, they're listening for everything. They're picking you apart. So your air control, your tongue pressure, everything has got to be spot on. And that's where the discipline of making yourself practice as much as possible and getting familiar with your calls that's where that comes into play. Because if you're not on your game and you're not controlling your air, or you might feel like you're getting out of breath or whatever, but you've got to suck it up sometimes and really hone in on what you're doing and focus and get your tongue in the right position and just blow the right amount of air across that call, or it could end up going south real quick.
How do you set your kind of schedule up for those competitions? Is there kind of like a season on that, or how do you look ahead of how you put yours together?
So a lot of times there's not usually any turkey calling contest during turkey season. For the most part, there'll be some here and there. Like I know there was one in Missouri last week, but their season don't come in for a little while. But like if you look, there's no competitions going on in Mississippi or Florida or anything like that right now because it's full swing turkey season, and you're not going to have anybody coming to a turkey calling competition during turkey season. So, some of our competitions will have some in September. I know there's a few around here in September, and then once you get closer to like the Grand Nationals, you'll start to see a ramp up in the competitions. And I'm a part of a Facebook group. It's called Turkey Calling Contest. So they post all of these contests in all these different places on there and give you the information that you need. So, and they're pretty good about giving you a heads up, a few months in advance, so you can kind of get a plan together, plan of action together and stuff. So like, I know usually I'll hit up, like there's one in West Virginia in September. Usually I think this year they combined the Virginia and West Virginia and they called it Battle of the Borders. And it was a 2-day contest. It was in West Virginia. And I think this year they're going to move it to Virginia. So they're going to try and alternate it back and forth. So I don't know if I'll make that contest because where it's going to be in Virginia is like a 7-hour drive. And that's just not a drive I like to make that time of year. So, now I have drove like when it gets close to Grand Nationals, I'm looking for all the stage time I can get. So I'm going to, Pennsylvania, which is a 5.5 hour drive one way for me. So me and my buddy this year, we loaded up in the truck and went the week before Grand Nationals. And I was looking at a contest in Georgia, which was going to be like a 8.5 hour drive for me. And it's when you get close to that timeline of January and February, you'll see guys start to travel a lot more to get that stage time in right before Nashville to kind of give them a tune up and make sure everything's flowing good. Um, and then in the summertime, there's quite a few contests. I know the World Championships is going to be in Mobile, Alabama, and that's in June. And then the U.S. Open is going to be in Louisiana this year, and that's going to be in July. And then I believe there's going to be another contest in Tennessee, somewhere around those. I haven't heard a date yet, but I was talking to one of the guys that was promoting that or going to be promoting that contest, and he said it's going to be right around the same time. So I think I'm going to try and get to, maybe Louisiana, but most definitely I'm going to try and get to the one in Tennessee. And I wanted to go to the World Championships in Mobile and kind of make a vacation out of it for the family, go down and stay in Mobile and then go to the Gulf Shores and stay at the beach and stuff. But, I'm pretty low in seniority at my job, so I don't get first dibs on vacation, and that week's already gone. So I'm like, well, I guess we're not going to the Worlds this year.
Yeah. So how does that work? Do you have like sponsors that help cover that, or is it just all kind of out of pocket passion?
So there's some guys that do have sponsors that will pay entry fees and stuff like that. And me personally, I have one guy, and he builds my calls, and that's all I ask him to do because he's been with me from the beginning. I competed in my first contest, and like I said, it was kind of just a local contest at a VFW, and it was something that intrigued me. So I got kind of more into it. So I started looking at different calls and stuff, and I went to the Ohio Deer and Turkey Expo that year, and I met a guy named Jeff Frederick, and this guy is out of Mendura, Wisconsin. So I stood there and I struck up a conversation with him, and we started talking. And he used to call competition back in the 80s and 90s, and he's been building, his own mouth calls for years. And I bought a couple of calls off of him, and he actually ended up giving me a couple more calls. And he's like, take these and run these. Let me know what you think, and run them in your competition and stuff like that. So, flash forward to that next competition, and I ran his calls and won the hunter division, and actually, called fairly decent. Had a couple guys was like, you should have called the open, and I was like, I'm just kind of dipping my toes in it. And I got a hold of Jeff, and we started talking back and forth. And then next thing I know, he just started sending me calls and not charging me for them. So it was like, okay. So then we got to talking more and more and more. And he's like, listen, you're my guy. I want you to run my calls, and I want to do whatever I can to help get you to the top and keep you there. And I was like, that to me means so much that, I've been approached by others about, possible sponsorships and stuff like that. And it's just, he has done so much for me as far as the mentorship and building the calls and stuff that it's a loyalty thing for me right now. And I love everything he does. And I foot the bill for all the competitions and, my stay at Grand Nationals and all that. And we just, we're really, really good friends. So
I'm kind of interested in because you're not really all that far from me. I would like to come check one of these out. I've never been to one. I would love to when you get up on stage, I could even film for you, and you could put something together for maybe YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, man, that sounds awesome. I know. I'm trying to think of when the next one I'm actually going to go to is. I want to say probably. Oh, September maybe or August. September we talked about. So when I was at the state championship in Ohio this year, they used to always have a local at the same place in September, and then they kind of took over the state championship. And then when COVID happened, they quit having their September contest. And Eric, the guy that puts it on, was telling me he'd thought about going ahead and revamping that September contest again. So there may be one in September. If not, I think the state championship, the Kentucky state championship, is in August, and I debated going to that one. I'm not really positive yet. It's like 7 hours from here, so I'd have to stay.
Yeah.
Um, I wish they had more over there in Indiana because at one time I do know that they used to have one or two over there, and
Mhm.
they haven't been having them anymore. So
That sucks. It would be definitely. I would love to check it out, and I'm sure I have buddies that would be all into it. I personally don't want to get up on stage, but I
yeah,
would love to check it out and video some stuff.
yeah. I actually have a buddy that lives in Indiana that does taxidermy and stuff that used to call competition. He did it for a couple of years,
Mhm.
and he kind of focused more on his taxidermy. I don't know if I can't remember where he's at, but his name's Matthew Myers.
Not familiar with that name, but Indiana is a pretty big state.
Yeah, I know he was. I want to say he was in this southeastern part of the, or yes, southeastern part of the state. But
Okay.
he came a couple years for competitions and stuff, and he used to do like a podcast and a hunting show and stuff with his buddy, and they got pretty big into it. And then that kind of took a back seat, and he started doing taxidermy. He does. I think he does only like right now. It's all turkey, and he does some really good stuff. But yeah, he
I'll have to
was.
check that out.
Yeah, he. We was talking about trying to get a we wish there was more contest in Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do some vest talk. What kind of, as far as hunting, we'll separate the stage part from the hunting,
Okay.
which I'm sure maybe some of them are very similar. But what kind of calls are in your vest? What are you running when you're boots on the ground in the woods?
So last year, I actually went to a very minimalist approach. I carried a bino harness, and it had a pocket for a slate call, a pocket underneath for a box call, and a pocket on the side for some mouth calls. So I was carrying the bare minimum. I had my Vortex binos, and then uh, I had my calls that Jeff has made me, and then I have a pot call that my buddy Dustin has made. And a lot of that's the thing with me is like a lot of my calls are made by friends of mine, and really good call builders. And it's cool because it's like I get to take a piece of them in the woods with me whenever I go. Like my Mark 6 box call. He's a buddy of mine from Kentucky. He used to live in Ohio, but he's from Kentucky and he builds box calls. So I get to take I take his box call, and then I'll take usually one glass or slate call, and take it out. But if I'm really heavy hunting and I want to throw everything at them, I've got my big vest. I've got a glass call, a slate call, a box call, 3 or 4 different strikers. Because you never know, the harder strikers will have a little bit sharper tone, or if you want to get soft, you use something a little bit softer wood. You can get real good clucks and purrs on. Um, and then I always carry about 5 or 6 mouth calls in the woods with me, so I can switch them up. Because if they get too wet, they start to sound bad. And I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to, like, I want to sound as
Oh,
real
I'm
as I
sure.
can every time. Every time I have a call in my mouth, I'm trying to make it sound as good as it can. So I'll switch calls, throughout the day.
Mhm. What about gun setup? What kind of gun you rocking with, or are you bow hunting?
And so that's one thing I've never done is bow hunted turkeys, and it's just because, for the simple fact, I get so much enjoyment out of shooting them with a gun, or just hunting them in general, that I was like, man, I really want to kill one with a bow. But I'm like, I have so much fun hunting them with this shotgun that I'm not that worried about it. One day I will, though. One day I'll go out with a bow. But typically my gun setup is, for years it was a Remington 870 Express Magnum 12 gauge that my dad bought me for my 12th birthday. I killed my first deer, my first turkey with it, and I mean, it holds a lot of sentimental value. And I mean, I gave it a complete makeover. I put a pistol grip on it with, the tactical
Nice.
stock, adjustable stock, and adjustable foregrip, and then had it dipped in camo, and then put a red dot on top of it, and shot Longbeard XRs out of it for years. And then I want to say it was 4 years ago, I switched to a Stevens 301 410. And
Nice.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love that little gun, man. Like, I my first bird I ever shot with it was at like 35 yards, and it was turned away from me, and I shot it right in the back of the head, and I mean, it just dropped stone cold. It didn't even flop, and I just
I
remember
shot one
looking.
like that. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
I shocked me. I remember I looked at this little gun, and I was like, "Holy crap!" So I called my dad because me and my dad had both bought them the same day, and neither one of us had killed a turkey with it yet. And I called my dad, and I was like, "This thing ain't no joke. Like this thing just drove this turkey into the dirt." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And like got him, sent him a video of me walking up to this bird, and I mean, it wasn't moving until I put my hands on it. It did not. It didn't move, didn't flap a wing or nothing. And once I got my hands on it, it kind of flapped a little bit. But yeah, and then ever since then, I've stuck with that 410. I've killed several birds with it now. I killed two in Kentucky last year with it. I'm not proud to say this, but last year, my first turkey that I killed in Kentucky was 50 yards when I shot it with that 410. It was kind of like a spot and stalk kind of situation. I seen him in the field across the road from the cabin we were staying in. I crept down the creek bank and I popped up and he was standing there, and I didn't think I can't get him any closer because he's not going to come to this creek where he can obviously see if there's a hen. So I pulled the hammer back and shot, and I mean he went down. So
That's
uh,
awesome.
I mean that those little 410s, man, with the advancements we have in ammo now, them things are just as good, if not even more deadly than a 12 gauge with 5 shot in it.
Oh, absolutely. So when I switched to the 410, I used to just run and gun. Like I was real big, no decoy. I get them close enough to shoot. Now with the 410, I find myself setting up more of the decoys. Even if I'm running and gunning, I'm still trying to get that decoy out. So is that kind of the tactic you're taking now, or are you decoy or no?
No, and it's all situational. Like if I know I'm going to a good spot that turkeys like to frequent, and I can see, they can see a long ways, I'll set up a decoy just to give them something to look at and take their attention off of me. Looking for that hen. Um, Most typically, 90% of the time, I'm walking around with no decoys. I'm running and gunning. Um, I'm setting up on, little breaks and stuff where if he pops his head up, he's within range and I can get him, and I luckily, well, knock on wood, to this day, I have not shot a Jake accidentally doing that.
Yeah,
Just waiting on it to come up over the hill and pop their head up. But there's been a few times I've been able to call them in to, pretty close. Like last year, my second bird in Kentucky last year, I got to 30 yards. Got to see him come in spitting and drumming, and we weren't using decoys. And that was he come in looking though. So I mean, if we didn't have the right setup, we were set up on a fallen down tree with plenty of shadows. We had the sun to our back, so we were sitting in a dark spot, so he couldn't see a whole lot of movement in those shadows or anything. So when he came up, I got to watch him put on a little bit of a show before I took
yeah.
him. But um, just hunting those transitions like that is a big thing for me. If I'm going to hunt, like I said, like a wide open hardwood ridge or a big open hardwood bottom where they can come down to you and see you, or they can come through the bottom and kind of see a long ways, then I might put a decoy out there and give them something to look at and entice them a little bit. But
Are you shooting
it,
the stock uh, choke still, or did you buy an aftermarket?
I'm still shooting a stock choke. I've actually
Okay.
looked into getting an Indian Creek for it because I've seen a lot of guys shooting the Indian Creek and I really like it. The patterns it's throwing, but at the same time, I'm the type of guy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely.
So,
Like
so
you
I mean,
said,
if
with
I'm
those
killing,
TSSs.
yeah, if I'm shooting birds at 40, 50 yards with it with the factory choke, then I mean that's all the farther I need to kill one. So I mean, if I can't get him in closer than that, then he lives to call gobble another day, and I'll chase him then. But this year I kind of actually we went to a competition the other day, and me and my kids went up and we won like seven. We ended up getting like $700 some in gift cards to this outdoor store that was putting this
Nice.
competition on. Yeah, it's awesome. It was an awesome little competition. It's not sanctioned or anything, but they were running a sale on guns, and they had a Mossberg 500 Turkey edition. So like it has the long leaf camo, and it's got a cutout on the back of it to put it's red dot ready. You just slide a red dot down in there and bolt it down, and it sets. You can kind of co-witness with your bead, and I bought that, and I think it was on sale for like $460. So I went ahead and got one of those.
Shit, sign me up. I want one of them.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. I'll have to send you a picture of it because like when I got it, I was like, man, this thing is awesome. Like I can't believe, they didn't think of this sooner, was being able to set that red dot just straight down in there, and it has I think it's the RMSC footprint, so it fits a micro red dot, and it's just you bolt it right into the receiver right there, and it's a pretty slick little deal. So I'm excited to hunt with that this year. I'm going to start rolling my own shells. I got some TSS here at the house and some powder and stuff, and I'm going to start rolling my own shells and try and come up with my own recipe to, for a 20 gauge and stuff. But I'm excited to get the kids out there. I'm going to let them shoot the 410. I'm going to try and roll some 410 loads. I think it'd be cool to see my kids harvest their first turkey with a shell that I rolled myself. And,
Absolutely.
And then letting my daughter's wicked on a box call for 9-year-old that's just started doing it. Like she's pretty good.
I seen the video of her. She was doing good.
Yeah, I told her, I said, if you want to, I'll let you try and call in your first turkey. I think that would be cool, and I'll just sit back and videotape it.
Talk about hooked then.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm hoping, is because she's kind of on again, off again with this kind of stuff. Like she wants a turkey hunt, and then she's like, oh, I don't really know, and then same with the competition stuff. She's like, I don't really know if I want to, and then she goes out and she wins a competition, and she's like, oh, okay, I like this, and then. A couple months go by and I'm like, hey, you want to go to this competition? And she's like, I don't really know if I want to. And I'm like, oh man, like, come on, you're killing me. Like I'll let her do it at her own speed. Though. I'm not going to try and force her into anything. If she don't want to hunt this year, then she don't, but she's been talking it up like she wants to. She's pretty excited. And my boy, he's 3 and he's just, all the time. He's like, Dad, can we go turkey hunting?
Yeah.
I want to go turkey hunt. Or I want to go fishing.
I think it's like if you make it fun for them, man, they want to go. But if you're like, hey, sit still, don't move, you scared that one away. Like if you're hard on them like that, it puts a sour taste in because they're letting you down. Right. That's the last thing they want to do, especially at that young age. So like when I take Maddie, it's like take whatever you want. I killed one with her last year, and I bought the Stevens 410 for her, and I'm using
you're using it.
Oh yeah.
But we got home. I had called a bird in for my friend, and then he had something to go do. So I got home, and I heard one gobble up in the field, and I told Maddie, I was like, hey, let's go. We'll go turkey hunt. So she come around the corner. She had a purse. She had some like little toys and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not what I meant, but let's roll. And we got in the blind, and we called in. I think it was 5. And
oh yeah,
I was like, you want me to shoot one? She was like, shh. She was making more noise in the blind than the turkey was.
Yeah, she was.
We shot one, and she was like, "This was so much fun." And now, like, if she sees turkey, she freaks out. She's like, "There's a turkey! I got to tell my dad." Like, we're coming back here, and like every Saturday morning, we'll get up and go to the dump, and we'll ride around and we'll look for turkey. And like, I'll send you guys a video. Like tonight, she'll go outside and she'll like try to hoot. She's just like, she's just making noise.
Yeah.
But it's like if you make it fun for them and you feed into it positively, I think it is what you make it, really. So I'm trying to just like, I don't plan on every time we go killing one but I try to make it as fun as I can. That way she wants to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm going to try and implement this year with my boy is, he's got a very short attention span, but he loves being outdoors. So, if he wants to, dig in the dirt or play with rocks or take his toy trucks with him or whatever, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
I bought a thing actually on Amazon the other day. It's called a piggyback rider. So it's like a harness that you wear, and on the back it has a metal bar and they stand on it, and then they wear a harness and it clips into your harness. So they stand and their head is like right here above your head so they can see.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm like, I told my wife, I was like, we're going this year and I'm going to take him on this thing. So like, I don't know how it's going to be on old Dad's back because he's almost 4, but he's a big old boy. He weighs almost 50 pounds. Like he's pretty solid. He's pretty rambunctious too. So I can see him trying to do jumping jacks while I've got him strapped in there. So, but I'm definitely going to try and get him out there this year. He's excited to go. And I remember last year hearing turkeys, we'd be sitting in the truck and there's a flock of turkeys down the road here that I can't hunt. So I don't really care if I call to them from the truck or not. nobody else can hunt them either. I'll be honest. This guy leases his property out to deer hunters from North Carolina, so he don't let anybody hunt, and them guys don't turkey hunt. So I just go down there. That's the local flock I like to mess with. There's about last year I think there was 4 big longbeards and 3 jakes and a bunch of hens, and I'll go down there and park the truck right next to the cattle field and just sit there and hit a call, and they'll come 40 yards from the truck and gobble their heads off, and my boy just eats it up. He loves it. So I'm hoping that once we get out there on them hardwood ridges and we're, walking and beating feet a little bit, he won't tap out on me. But
yeah,
I'd like to see his face when one comes in and just gobbles right in our face. I can't wait to see that.
Oh yeah. What about your plans for hunting out of state for the 2024 spring turkey season? What do you got planned?
So usually we try and make it to Kentucky. There's a guy I go with, him and his dad. And last year we went down and we killed, 3 on opening day and had a blast down there. It was awesome time. But the property that property there is private, and he was telling me the other day that guy had talked about selling it, and he hasn't heard from him since he said that. So we're not for sure if we're going to get to go back to that property or not. If that's the case, it's no big deal. I hate that we're going to miss that turkey camp because it is a good time with those guys. But he talked about taking his dad to another spot at his family's property, and I didn't really try and invite myself on that. Right. So I was like, well, I know where some public land is, and I got some buddies that are always willing to travel and turkey hunt. So try and maybe throw something together to go to Kentucky for a couple of days. Because it's just a couple hours from the house, the spot that I like to go and hunt. And then a buddy of mine that calls competition, he has family that lives in Ohio, but he has family that lives in West Virginia, a couple hours from me. And we're going to try and make a weekend trip down there this year. And then trying to get together plans to go to Wisconsin and hunt with my call maker, Jeff. That's been a hunt that I've been wanting it so bad for the last few years. And it seems like, with the COVID happened, and then, I had shoulder stuff going on. My dad's had cancer a couple times and stuff. It was just one of the things that it was like, well, Wisconsin turkey hunt is the last thing on my mind right now. I'll get to it when I get to it. So this year I've been really, really trying to get that one planned and get out there for at least a couple of days. And then, he said there's a guy there. One of his buddies is a duck call builder. I can't remember the name of his company, but he's from Minnesota, and he wants us to come up and try and hunt with him as well. So I might hit Wisconsin and Minnesota in that week, and then come back to Ohio, finish out our season, and then maybe head up to Michigan. I'd like to get up there and try and hunt. I know a buddy of mine went up there last year, and he's talked about going up again this year. So that might be in the works there. So
yeah, that's kind of where I end my my season at is in Michigan in May, and it's probably one of the funnest places to turkey hunt I've ever been as far as turkey hunting goes. Which I think Dylan might top some of that on the turkey stuff when I go to Tennessee for the first time, and then I also am going to West Virginia. It's my second year in a row going to West Virginia, and it's been a lot of fun over there too. A lot of birds.
Yeah. He, my buddy Andy was telling me his family's property's got quite a few birds, and he's the only one that hunts it, so they don't get any pressure. So he's like, it's a really, really fun place to hunt because there's so many turkeys there, and they play the game the way they're supposed to. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe somewhere in there along the lines of Ohio or Kentucky or Indiana or something, we can get together and we try to get on some birds together and film each other or something, figure something out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I tell you, this is one thing that like the turkey hunting, like turkey calling world has brought me a lot of really, really, really good friends. And it's crazy to me. Like I have places to hunt in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, just about anywhere you want to go. I have met people that, and these are good people that like people that invite you to their house to stay. You're like, hey man, I got a place for you to stay. You can come stay. And and we'll go hunt some turkeys and stuff. And it's like, they open their homes up to you and stuff. And that's something that
Right.
I love to see with so much. I don't want to say like there's a lot, there's not a whole lot, but there's more and more negativity circling the turkey hunting world. Like people, dogging other people about their calling, or other people making fun of the way you hunt, with decoys or public or private or all this stuff. And it's like, man, me personally, I don't care. Just get out there and hunt, enjoy the sport like we all love to do. And it's like, I see these guys that are willing to open up their homes and bring me in and go on a turkey hunt. And it's like, I love that part of it. The fellowship is the best part to me. So like,
Oh, absolutely. I've encountered that with so many people, having this podcast and having the YouTube and stuff, and
mm-hmm.
Dylan and my buddy Troy from West Virginia and the Mid-State Outdoor guys from Michigan. I mean, a lot of people that I run into will do that. Open up
mm-hmm.
their homes. Come stay with me, buddy. I got a couch you can crash on. We'll drink beers and go turkey hunting. It's like, don't threaten me with a good time because I'm going to cash in on it.
Exactly. Yes. I love it so much, man, because like I've developed so many good relationships with people and friendships, like meeting you through TikTok, and I've met quite a few other people from TikTok, and
Mm-hmm.
been invited to go hunting with them. And, I've invited them to come hunt with me. I don't really have a place to stay per se, but like, I know where some birds are, and I don't care you can pitch a tent in the yard or whatever. I don't have a whole lot of room in the house right now, but I'm working on that. I'm going to try and build me a garage with a big man cave. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to put about 2 or 3 futons in there. So when my buddies want to come up and stay and turkey hunt, we got a place to crash. So,
hell yeah.
but like, to me, I like to hunt by myself sometimes. Like I like to go out and play that chess match alone sometimes with that turkey, just me and the turkey. But 90% of the time, if I can, I'm going out with somebody else and just sharing that experience with them. I mean, to me, that's the most thrilling part of it all is watching my buddy or somebody that, say they've never killed a bird in Ohio, or never killed a turkey or whatever, never seen one work the way it did or whatever. And getting to share that experience with them that's something that you can't buy,
For sure.
Absolutely. So I know a lot of my hunts that we do film, it's just on cell phones and stuff like that. So my first real time filming will be when Brett comes down. So do you film at all, or do you just kind of phone?
So a couple of years ago, I bought a big camera. I bought a bunch of GoPros and stuff, and I filmed. Let's see, what year was that? I think it was 2020. So like COVID happened and we shut down at work, and I was off that whole time. And I went ahead and just went full bore into it, man. I started buying the cameras and the tripods and all that stuff, and getting out there and filming my hunts. And I got quite a few good hunts on camera, but I lost a couple birds that year because of it. And it was like trying to sell film is one of those, it's so tedious and so hard to try and get that shot and get that bird in the frame and all this stuff. And a couple birds got away, and I don't like it when they get away. So I'm like, I told my wife, I said, you know what? There's been 2 birds get inside 50 yards this year, and they walked away, and I don't like that. So I think I'm going to hang the camera up for a little bit, and I'm just going to get back to the roots of it and just hunt, because to me, I don't care if at that, I'm getting more and more where I want to film now and share that experience and all that. But it's like me, I just want to go out there and hunt and share that experience with whoever's with me, or even if I get to do it by myself or whatever, just being in the moment, and not worry as much about the camera equipment and stuff. But I've been talking to Brett quite a bit about, like, I ended up buying that monopod you was talking about from Fourth Arrow.
Yeah, those things are sweet.
And so I bought one of those at the expo a couple weeks ago, and I got my camera back out, got the batteries out, I got everything kind of looking it over, working it over a little bit, and I think I'm going to try and film a little bit more this year. I did film with my phone last year quite a bit. I guide a hunt in Ohio here. They do it on the first weekend in April, so it's 3 weeks before our season even comes in. They allow the wounded warriors and wheeling sportsmen hunt in Pike County. And we take people out who have, disabilities and stuff. And I got the pleasure to take a guy out named Craig from Louisiana, Craig Long, and he had spina bifida, and this is the only way he gets to hunt is if somebody is able to take him on a hunt like this, and watching all the wheels that have to turn and all the work that people have to put into it to make this happen, just really put it in perspective to me, like how much these hunts mean to these people that can't get out and do it on their own. And I filmed it with my phone last year, and it was, I think the video altogether is 5 minutes long. We get in the blind. I heard an owl hoot 500 yards away on a ridge. And we're in there early. They got to take us in there with ATVs and stuff. So they take us in there really early, and we're sitting there, and an owl fires off 500 yards away on this ridge, and you could just barely hear it. So I pulled out my owl hooter and I started hooting to this owl. As soon as I hooted to this owl, this bird just 80 yards in front of us in a tree. And it's pitch black dark. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I went ahead and stuck my head back in the blind, and I said, well, Craig, looks like we're just playing the waiting game now. So we sat there, and it started breaking daylight. And I like to think that, he's like, well, your calling's what brought him in. And I like to think that. I don't think they just had us in a really good spot. This spot was perfect. But I did my little scenario, I did some tree yelps and stuff, and a fly down cackle, and then did some like feeding calls and soft yelps and stuff. And the next thing I know, actually the most important part of this story that really, it choked me up a little bit. He had a buddy that had passed away a few years back, and he had given him a box call. And he asked me the night before, he said, do you think you could run this box call a little bit for me while we're out there hunting? So, just so I can see, kind of bring the idea that he's here with us. And I was like, absolutely, man, I'll do whatever you want. This is your hunt. So I took that box call out that morning, and after I did my little fly down and stuff, and I took that box call, and this thing is an old box call. There was no chalk on this lid. There was nothing on this lid. And I'm fighting this thing, trying to get any kind of sound I can out of it. And I'm sitting there playing with this thing. And finally I get like 2 or 3 good little soft yelps. And all of a sudden I hear wings beating, and they flew out of the tree and flew right down into the field. And there ended up being 2 giant longbeards. And they were big birds, and they come in strutting, gobbling in our faces. And I got it all on video on my phone, and they got within 40 yards. And he had told me there was a contest going on. Whoever killed the biggest bird got a free mount. So they got it mounted for free. So he kept telling me, he's like, you got to tell me which one's the biggest one. You got to tell me which one's the biggest one. And I'm like, okay. So the back bird kept strutting, and, he just kept strutting and gobbling. And I was like, I'd say that's probably the dominant bird. I said, you go ahead and shoot the back one whenever they get in here. Well, then they both started strutting, and I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, it don't matter.
Shoot
to me, it don't matter. I said, you could shoot whichever one you want. It don't matter. And they got within 40 yards, and I was like, wait for him to separate. And that back bird took about 3 steps to the right, and that lead bird just kind of stuck his head up. And when he did, Craig just rolled him. And he picked up that box call, and he shook it, and he kissed it, and he pointed up to the sky, and he's like, that one's for you, buddy. And I was like filming it, and I'm like, all right, man, let's go get your bird,
Yeah.
All right. And I just remember that experience there was really solidified it for me. Like, this is why I do this. It's not about, the calling contest. It's not about the, harvesting these turkeys. It's sharing those experiences with these guys and friends and stuff. And me and him became really good friends now. Like, we text and stuff all the time, and he's invited me to come down to Louisiana and stay with him. And he's coming back this year, actually. Here in a couple weeks, we'll be back out there doing it again.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. These birds ended up, that bird that he shot ended up having 1.5 spurs,
Nice.
10.5 inch beard, and weighed like 22 pounds. It was a heck of a bird. It was awesome. And he ended up getting the free mount, so he should be getting that back this year. And
That's an
Man, that's
incredible
it
awesome.
story.
yeah, I mean, this organization is called Thunder in the Hills Hunt is what it's called. They put it on the Clinton County Longbeards for the NWTF. They put this hunt together, and the stuff that they do. I mean, they cater in meals for us, and they give away guns and everything. And it's just like, man, to see everyone come together like that for the wild turkey is just so incredibly awesome.
Yeah, I think that's what differs. I've said it on here a couple times, and some people may not get it because maybe some people listening to this don't turkey hunt as much as others. Turkey hunt just touches your soul a little bit different. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
it does. It does. I mean, turkey hunting to me brings people together, whereas deer hunting, and I mean, I know some people have a different opinion on this, but I think deer hunting kind of pushes people away a little bit because it's competitive. Deer hunting's very
Right.
competitive. It's like, no, you can't hunt my property because I got a buck I'm watching. And I totally understand that because I have deer that I watch. But I also, at the same time, if I've got one turkey gobbling on my property, I called a couple of years ago. I called my buddy. I had one turkey gobbling on my property, and I said, "Hey, bring your nephew out here and let's kill this thing." And he texted me. He's like, "A lot of people wouldn't do that, man. I really appreciate you." And I was like, "Dude, like this is what it's all about to me. Like this,
For sure.
seeing kids or anybody harvest a turkey to me that appreciates it is just that's it for me.
Yeah, I wish they had something like that close to me that I could go and do some of these hunts with somebody like that with a disability or something like that. And it kind of reminds me, I was talking to Dylan about this yesterday. There's a guy in Kentucky that kind of hit us up, saw the podcast somewhere. He's a disabled outdoorsman from Kentucky. Runs I think it's called Eric's Outdoors. And I believe that may be our guest for next week. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure all of his disabilities. I know he has one eye. He has a fake eye on one side. And I can't imagine having those disabilities and trying to enjoy your time out in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I did.
he's out there chasing them, man, and he's still
Yeah,
doing it. So that shows you the power that a bird can have over somebody. Like it doesn't matter what you're facing. That gobbler will get you out there chasing them.
Right. I mean, I've seen a lot of things like that, man. Like people just and they'll have crushing disabilities that most like if I had I'd be laying down and crying about it or something, and they're over here like it just makes me stronger. I'm gonna go out and they chase turkeys and deer and elk or whatever it may be, and to see those people be able to chase that is awesome, and to be a part of it was definitely something that will forever hold a special place in my
Oh,
heart for
absolutely.
that.
So, being what I would consider an expert caller, what are some of your tips for a new guy or somebody who maybe not as successful or doesn't get a bird every year? Like some tips or advice that kind of help them get higher success rate.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good question. So like calling wise, I became a lot better turkey hunter once I took the dive into trying to figure out how to sound the most real I can, because you're ultimately trying to trick this bird, and you learn so much like situational calling that you can apply it to the woods so easily once you figured out your call and stuff. So the most important thing is to find a call that works for you, and that whether that be a certain kind of stretch, a certain cut in a call, a 3 read, a 4 read, or whatever it may be, and then getting familiar with that call and finding out where all your tones and stuff are in that call. Your highs, your lows, your mids, and finding all that, and then applying it to your calling, and then like example of last year, I had a bird that was hung up, and he was just not coming. He was in public land in Kentucky, and I mean we were having fits with this bird, and we decided to be more realistic and come at him from the back of the property instead of the front where he was at. He was right next to the road, so we was like, okay, well, a real hen would be back here, and she'd be coming from back here most likely from the good nesting habitat and stuff. So we start walking up from there, and he's just hammering, hammering, hammering. We get close to him, and he's still in the same spot, just gobbling and gobbling and gobbling. he's not getting any closer. He's on his ridge. He's got a good vantage point. He's got his feet stuck in the ground. He wants you to come to him. So at that point, that's when the competition caller in me kind of came out, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to play a scenario for him to kind of pique his interest a little bit. And I waited and I let him gobble on his own. He gobbled. I cut, yelped. He gobbled again, and then I Jake yelped at him right after. As soon as he gobbled, I Jake yelped at him, and then I shut up. I didn't make another, not a cluck and purr, not a soft yelp, nothing. I didn't make another sound. And waited 10 minutes, and he gobbled about 50 yards closer, and then waited a little bit longer, and he gobbled again, and he was within 100 yards, and then he didn't gobble again, and I just heard spitting and drumming, and he come walking up over the hill. And ultimately what it was is it piqued his curiosity. He thought, well, I'm too late to the party. There's already somebody there. She's already found somebody, so I need to get over there and see what's going on. And, ultimately that was his demise. But playing those kind of mind tricks a little bit, once you kind of get comfortable with your calling, just being a more confident caller can make you a better hunter because you're believing in what you're doing and what you're saying to that turkey. So you're going to stay in situations longer and play it out. You're going to pursue that turkey a little bit harder, I guess, because you're more confident in your calling. Whereas some people, if he's walking away gobbling, and he's walking away or he shuts up for 20 minutes, they're ready to go ahead and head back to the truck.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, when they come in on a line like that, I call it the rod and reel because you've got them on the line.
Yeah. Once you get that you just plant that little seed up there in his head, and it just eats him up.
Absolutely.
He can't stand it.
Well, buddy, it's been a blast having you on. I feel like we could talk for another hour and a half, just sharing stories and stuff like that. So I think after turkey season's over with, I would love to have you back on again and kind of hear your stories of these other states, especially the Wisconsin, Minnesota thing. I'd really be real interested in hearing how all that goes because I've never really got to turkey hunt that north, anyways.
Oh yeah,
but It's been a blast having you on, brother.
Thank you, man. I had a great time being here talking turkey. It's something that I'm truly passionate about. I love it, man. Talking to like-minded people is a big part of it too. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, you have a great story, man. And I'll be at the NWTF this year, so hopefully I can sneak in there and watch you run a call.
Yeah, I'll be there. I qualified again, so I'll definitely be there. I'm gonna call in the prelims and the team aired friction and the owl hoot and stuff again this year. So
awesome. I'm trying to talk Brett into coming down for that convention because I'm 2.5 hours from Nashville, so I always shoot out that way and check it out.
Yeah. Brett, have you ever been to that?
I haven't. It seems like the last several years there's something always going on, and my expo is like the weekend after that. So I've already got stuff kind of running in that direction to help with the expo and all that stuff. But I think I just have to bite the bullet this year. I've been wanting to come forever. It's always in a weird time frame for me with stuff going on.
If you're a turkey hunter and you don't make it to the NWTF, like, oh man, you're missing out big time because there's so much stuff going on there, and everybody is there. And I get it from your perspective. You got a lot of other stuff going on. I understand that. That's just, I mean, for me, it's also a huge event for the calling and stuff. So I make it a point to make sure I'm there and stuff. But yeah, for sure, if you get a chance, make it there and come down this year and hit me up. We'll go and drink a couple up there at the watering hole and introduce you to some of my buddies and stuff. And I mean, it'll be, you won't be able to fit it all in a podcast. It'll be a few hours worth of turkey talk.
Oh, I'm sure, buddy. Well, tell everybody where they can follow you at on socials.
Okay. So, on Facebook, it's Jon Waugh. And then, I have an Instagram, but my last one got deleted, so I had to recreate one, and I haven't really been on there a whole lot. But TikTok, I post a lot of stuff on TikTok. I try and do a lot of humorous stuff on there, and make people laugh. I do some calling tips and tricks on there, but it's you can type in my name, Jon Waugh, or look up Walnut 64, spelled like my last name. And I think that's pretty much all the socials I got.
Awesome. Tell everybody where they can find you at, Dylan.
It's the same place as last week. D.All brought 7, and I'm just trying not to get kicked off TikTok at the moment. So we'll see how all that goes.
I know that feeling. Yeah, you post one too many dead turkeys, and they frown upon that.
Oh yeah, they pull
do.
it straight down, another strike, and then I'm like, I'll put hashtag not a dead turkey, hashtag research purposes, hashtag tranquilizer. They just
Try and find the loopholes, and they're just shutting it down.
Yeah, they're on me, so I think I'm on strike 2 right now. It's like a permanent ban, yeah. So I'm laying low.
I appreciate everybody listening in podcast land. Thank you on the YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Go check us out on everything. Like, subscribe, give us a rate and review on a podcast, something like that. Go check my buddies out at the Hoosier Backcountry podcast. I did an episode with them a couple weeks ago. They keep shouting me out on their podcast. I'm going to keep shouting out for them. Great group of guys. And we'll see you again here next week for episode 81. And we'll see you.